Well, good day, YouTube. Been another week. Been pretty crappy week. Felt like crap. And put on a little more ascites in my abdomen than previously, which wasn't very pleasant. And so I went down to the hospital on Monday, normal. Give blood for my lab work. Got my macaroni test. And got the results back in a couple hours. Modern technology is great. So the numbers were all bad. And so by the numbers, it looked like I wasn't going to the hospital on yesterday, to get anything done. And so that was pretty depressing. So on Tuesday, we made a call down for the peritonesis and said, hey, do we have an appointment or not to get drained? And they called back and they assured us that the appointment was still good, even though the numbers are above normal, which they have been for what they checked, the INR and some other one, I don't remember. And so I was like, all right, great. So at least I'm going to get drained, because otherwise I would have had to drive inland to find somebody to drain me. One way or the other, I was going to get drained. And so I didn't worry about the phlebotomy. Those numbers dropped too low. And I knew I wasn't going to get the phlebotomy for the hemochromatosis. And so went down there, got drained, got scheduled out all the way till June 7th. It's great. The gal that works with us there on the phlebotomy, on the peritonesis, is a wonderful, wonderful gal, and really works with us. Even when we hit panic mode, always calls us back. And so, get that done. She kicks me over to the infusion center. And so, I already know I'm not giving the phlebotomy. So, I check at an infusion center. The gal up there at the front, she's like, yada yada, let me look at your lab work. She's like, well, your numbers for the phlebotomy are off 3 points. I'm like, yeah, I know. And she's like, well, we're not going to pull blood. I'm like, yeah, I know. But they are going to give me the albumin and the infusion part that goes with the peritonesis. I'm like, yeah, sounds great. And so they take me into the back. So this is the first person that I talked to who said, there's no phlebotomy going on today. And so they take me into the back, and this is going to be kind of a long story, but they're training a new registered nurse, new RN back there. And she's the one that did everything last week for me on her own. Did perfect. I was in and out of there, splickety split. And so she comes in and she pulls my lab work. She's like, oh, so you're not going to get your phlebotomy this week? I was like, no, the numbers are off. She's like, yeah. And so she's like, no problem. We'll get you set up for your infusion. I'm like, all right, great. And so the nurse that's supposed to be training her, I can hear him talking. She's like, oh, wait a minute. We have to do 2 different procedures on Mr. Bay. And this is how we're going to set up. And I'm sitting there listening. And the nurse that's in training, she's not saying anything. So she's like, well, we got to set him up for a phlebotomy. And so I'm just sitting there thinking. It's like, well, maybe they called the doctor and just being 3 points off. Which is a very small amount, that he probably just said, go ahead and take some blood out of him. Well, that wasn't the case. So she comes out, she's training this nurse. This is the way we do it. And so she goes and gets everything out for the phlebotomy. Opens up all the packaging and everything, and getting ready to get the IV started and that happy crap. And she's explaining all this to the nurse, and I'm just sitting there listening, and I'm waiting for some input from her, to let me know that, they called the doctor. And she's like, once she gets all done with this, explaining it to the nurse she's training, she's like, now we go check his labs. And I'm just like, oh, you got to be kidding me. And so she goes and checks my labs. And she's like, oh, we can't do the phlebotomy. And I'm just like, oh, crap. So we've wasted 15 minutes here. So all the packaging she opened up, she just has to toss it in the garbage. It's not sterile anymore. And she prints off the orders and whatnot, and she gives me a copy. So I got the orders for the phlebotomy and the albumin. And so she's like, well, all we have to do is the albumin. And I was like, I could have saved you a bunch of time. told two of you all that, no, I'm not getting a phlebotomy. And she didn't really have much to say. It's kind of like, you checked the lab work last. You should have checked that first, like the lady up front. Everybody knew but you for some reason, because you checked the labs the last thing you do. So I'm like, yeah, whatever. So my patients are gone. I felt like crap, all week, over the weekend too. And so she gets that machine going, and they start pumping in the infusion. And it takes 3 bottles. They're small. Little small bottles, about the size of baby food jars, And the training nurse, the nurse in training, sets it all up and gets the pump going. And the machine beeps, when the first bottle runs out. And so it ran out, so I'm just sitting there, and I've got the doctor's orders in my lap the whole time. And it tells you how much I'm supposed to get, which was 36 grams. And so I just sit there, and during this time I was texting my wife and saying, they're screwed up. I'm having to correct them and tell them and teach them again. And she's like, well, be nice. And I was like, all right, but I don't have no patience left. And so I just sit there, and like I said, the machine beeps. She comes in, she's like, oh, it's all done. And I'm like, oh, now what? And she unplugs everything, pulls the IV and everything. And I just sit there and watch her the entire time. And she puts the little Band-Aid on and says, you're good to go. I'm like, well, what about the other 25 grams of my infusion? She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, I should have got 3 bottles. There are 12.5 grams of albumin in each bottle. And that, I'm at 36 grams. That's 3 bottles. And she's kind of like, huh? I'm like, the order's right here. You printed it out. You gave it to me. I got the same order printed out last week, And so she kind of looks at it, and she goes and does something. And so she comes back, and she tells the nurse she's training, hey, I screwed up. And so I just look at the lady who unplugged me and everything, because now they have to reset everything back up, put another IV in me. And so I asked her, I was like, is it common practice for you just to short patients this much medication and send them out the door? And that kind of ticked her off, but it's exactly what's going on. And she just kind of gave me a dirty look and yada yada. And so she left, didn't really say much. She didn't say anything, to tell you the truth, that I remember. And so the nurse in training comes, gets me all set back up. The infusion starts again. And we get down the last bottle, and it empties out. And machine beeps, And so here comes the nurse that is training. And she comes and says, oh, now you're done. And she gets ready to take the IV out. I'm like, I'm not done. I was like, you got to give me the rest of my medicine. She's like, well, what are you talking about? And I said, well, there's 0.7 grams left in the tubing from the pump to my arm. There's 0.7 grams. And she just gives me a weird look. And I was like, you need to flush that into my arm so I get my full dose, And so she kind of hee-hawed around, and she's like, well, we're not really used to patients knowing, what we're actually supposed to be doing. I'm like, oh, really? It's like, that's interesting. But So she flushes it, and then she tries to say, well, these are new pumps, and which they are new pumps they got 3 weeks ago. And so I just looked at her. I was like, yeah, I know they're new pumps. I was like, I was the first patient in here that you guys used the new pump on. It's like the representative asked, if I could be a guinea pig while you all sat around in a circle jerk and watched. And she explained to you all this stuff. She told you guys how much fluid's left in these tubes. And some of these infusions are pretty important. You need every drop, And so I was telling her, she just gave me a funny look again. And I was like, you need to flush that in and finish it. And she's like, well, how do you know? And I explained that to her. It's like, well, I was the first one you guys used these on. I paid attention to what the representative was saying. And this is one of the topics, how much fluid, is left in this tubing. And, you need to flush it with normal IV solution, flush the tubing out into my arm. And so she just kind of looked at me weird. And she flushed it and pulled everything out, and I went on my merry way. But, she was kind of surprised, and, it's like we're not used to patients knowing, about their health care. I'm like, this is a matter of my life here, we're dealing with, I'm going to know about everything, every aspect of it, everything that happens, everything that goes in my arm, everything that you take out of me. I'm going to know exactly how much, when, why. And, that's just, I don't know, it just seems normal and common for a person on end stage, to inquire about these things. And so, it took forever in there. Normally, it's pretty fast. They won't let my wife in the building. She doesn't have her macaroni shot. Test isn't good enough. You got to have the shot to get in there, except for I don't have to. But and she usually goes and grabs us some lunch after a little bit, and the timing's pretty good. When I'm done, I come out. So she ran down, got me a burger and some fries and a Mountain Dew. I was pretty hungry. We had a later in the day appointment, and so took an extra hour in there. So I come out, French fries are unedible, You gotta realize I'm all out of patience by now, And the burger's cold, it's like it's been in the fridge. And, at least the Mountain Dew was cold and drinkable and still had ice cubes in it. But, it just built up. And then the bills are coming in again. And that's building up, Pretty depressing. And, you got to have someone to unload on that will listen but ignore you too. And that's part of what I've talked about before, about how it affects family and how we've learned from each other, Sometimes one of us just needs to vent, and it's not worthy of a redundant conversation. Just listen, and it goes a long ways. So that's one of the things that we have learned, The redundant conversations aren't worth it. One doctor says tells my wife one thing, tells me another thing, and then we get in a redundant conversation, and, I'm like, yeah, but they told me this, and she'll be like, yeah, but this doctor told me that, And so we don't really, it's just frustrating. So that's how my week went. I got drained. I got my infusion. I'm not sure what we're going to do about the phlebotomy. My ferritin level has dropped down to 800. It still needs to be down to 30. I started at 1266, I believe. So we'll see next week. I'll go in, get blood drawn again for the labs, see where I'm at, and see if they're going to take blood or not. But I guess there might be some medication they can give me to get the ferritin levels down. The high ferritin levels has affected me quite a bit this last week. especially in joint pain. This is mainly my lower body, hips down. And then another fancy word, I don't remember what it is, but it's for your skeletal muscles, and they just start hurting. And they were hurting pretty bad, those muscles were. So I was counting on that. Getting that lowered is supposed to help with those problems, but come home, $100, fill the truck up and gas, and everything just builds. And, check the mail, just more doctor bills. Tried to figure out how to pay everything. And now a lot of my meds I have to refill. It's all at the same time. One of them's $500 to refill, for this upcoming month. And it's just like, how are we going to pay for, all this? The doctor's now wanting right at $30,000 is my share of the cost right now. And it just keeps going up, and trying to figure out how to pay that, and satisfy them. Have been applying for some financial assistance at 3 of the hospitals, and so hopefully we'll at least be able to get some of those bills reduced, which will be helpful. It'll relieve some stress for sure. I have upcoming appointments inland that adds $100 every time I go inland to my gas bill. That's what it cost me to go inland, come back, $100 in gas. So, next month I'm looking at probably $500 just in gas. And normally I'm right around $300 a month in gas. And this is just going to the hospitals and back. That's it. That's the only thing we're using the truck for really right now. And it is what it is. But I know I talked about, asking about help too online. And I thought about it, and I didn't really want to, but I did. And I had a friend over, and they're like, yada yada, you need to do this. And so I did set up a PayPal pool, and it is working some. So people are donating in there, and that money will go towards gas and medications, and that'll help offset some. And that's going to run for a while. If you're so inclined, I'm going to put a link down in the description to the PayPal pool. You can see what's going on. It's kind of like the old ones. I don't know how many of you guys PayPal. I've been a long time user, and they stopped the PayPal pools a while back, but they started them back up, and they have a limit set on how much and yada yada. But you can do it again. You can see who's donated, and how much, and see where the running total is. And I'll put that link down in the description when I post this. And I'm gonna post up just my regular PayPal link, if you so desire, just to use that. No information comes out. The PayPal pool you can do anonymously as well, if you don't want people to know, and they won't know who it is. But normal PayPal, I get to keep 100% of that funds. The PayPal pool, they take a portion for the services. It's not too bad. Looks like it's about $25 every $500, somewhere around there. What it looks like it's running right now for what they take. But I don't know. You call it e-begging, call it whatever. I know I said something last week with how many millions of Americans we have here. If just 1 million of them would donate $1, that would help a lot of people. Not just me. It'd help a lot of people. And it's only $1. There's no set amount you can donate. It's just whatever. And it's working some, and I'm very thankful for the help I am getting. People are spreading the pool around, and that helps. That's what social media is all about. Is this big circle. It just keeps expanding. And, your friends and their friends and yada yada. It's a big family tree type dealio. But I'm very thankful, very appreciative. Me and my wife both are. It will help us a lot, especially with the gas and the medications. We'll see what happens with getting some of this financial help that the hospitals offer. That's 3 hospitals there. The bills are pretty spendy. And like I said, I'm right at $30,000 is my share of it so far. And help if you can. It's most appreciated. And I don't feel too bad. I do feel bad, but not too bad, because it's not really my style. It's usually me always giving, never asking or receiving or taking. And I hope karma will turn a circle and come back to me. And hopefully some of these people that I have helped generously out of my pockets will remember, if all you can kick's a buck, well, kick me $1. Whole bunch of dollars, adds up. $1 million bills is still $1 million, I'm just using that as just an example, but do what you can if you can, if you can't, you can't. I get that too. I've been poor, I've been homeless, so I know what it's like. I don't know, not a whole lot really more to say. I'm already at 20 minutes, I guess. I hope I feel better this week. They did pull out 6.25 liters yesterday. I was staying down around 4 the last couple of weeks, and or right around 5 and 4, low 4s. I think last week I was at 4.05, and that's tolerable. It's not pleasant, that's still a gallon of fluid. So you can look at it that way, So they took out pretty much 1.5 gallons of fluid yesterday out of my abdomen. And it's quite the relief. There's really nowhere for that fluid to go. It just stretches and bulges and it hurts, It presses up against your diaphragm, makes it hard to breathe, makes your heart work harder, and it's just not good all the way around for anything inside you. It's not like having a baby where you have a womb and a place for it to grow into. This is a peritoneal cavity, It's not designed for what's going on in there with me. And we'll see how next week goes. We'll see about the phlebotomy. If the numbers ain't gonna jive, like I said, they told me yesterday that the doctor can change the blood draws to some sort of medication to try to get the ferritin levels down. They still need to come down a lot, from 800, I believe it was 803 actually, and it needs to be down at 30. And have to wait and see how that goes. Got a doctor's appointment coming up end of this month for a second primary care physician, and I'll be running 2 primary care physicians and using one to check the other. I guess that's what a second opinion's all about. And the wife was kind of like, well, yada yada, you have one doctor, you have a primary. It's like, yeah, but there's no limit. And it's like, how do you get a second opinion if you don't go see a second doctor? So we're going to go. He's already in the Sutter Coast Loop. That's the hospital I go to. So he's already got all my records all the way back from December 3rd. And he's had a couple months now to go through them. and we'll see what he's got to say. We got some questions for him for sure, and we'll see what he agrees on and what he doesn't, and go from there, you know. And then next month, end of next month, got my appointment with my gastrologist, and should get some definite answers, some numbers, get me placed on the list finally. See where my standings are. I've been told at least a handful of times that I'm a very good candidate for the transplant. I've been healthy all my life until everything tanked on me on December 3rd. Until then, I didn't even have a doctor, didn't have a use for one. You know, if I cut myself really bad, I'd just go to the ER and get stitched up and pull stitches myself, you know. I've never need regular medical care for anything. There's never been anything wrong with me until now. So, kind of lost my train of thought. I still got the chemo brain. I'm pretty sure that all the ammonia levels are all right. The last ammonia level test was pretty much spot on normal, straight up and down, high noon normal. And that's what gives you the chemo brain. And makes me lose my train of thought. It's a lot better now. I probably would have started doing these video blog thingies, whatever you want to call them, sooner, except for I couldn't keep track of what I was saying most of the time. And why the late start on it. But I'm going to keep at it. You know, this is what it's like to slowly die. And hopefully, you know, I get that liver transplant. Basically by what we can tell is I have about a year to a year and 6 months left without the transplant. And that's if everything keeps going now, where I'm what I call shittily stable. I still feel like crap every day, but everything's pretty stable. It's, you know, I'm not back in ICU. I'm ambulatory now. You know, my wife's not bathing me. She's not pushing me around in a wheelchair anymore. And I'm up and eating. And so, you know, my primary care did get me to this spot where I'm at. But, you know, nothing's going to get any better than what it is right now. And it only get worse. You know, like I said, this last week, you know, it stressed me out with the muscle pain starting in, because that's progression. And today it's not too bad. I'm not sure why, because I didn't give blood, and I'm not sure, but the muscle pain's not quite as bad today. And that's been about my week. And you know, educating nursing staff down there in the infusion center. You know, anybody going through anything like this, I would keep up on every move they make, and get copies. I mean, we have binders full of stuff right now, orders and tests, and we keep track of it every time, you know. And even like if I don't have to go anywhere for 3 days or whatever, you know, we'll still pull stuff out and, you know, look at it, check it, you know, to see, you know, where I'm going with, you know, the blood draws, and, you know, what's going up, what's coming down, what's staying normal. And you need to know. You need to know what medicine they're giving you and how much. Don't count on that registered nurse knowing, because they don't. And you know, they proved it yesterday. And I actually did ask her if she just shorts people. Is it common, you know, for you just to short people on their infusions and kick them out the door? And it's the truth. That's exactly what was going on. You know, if I wouldn't have known, I would have got up and left. But by that time, I was playing games with her because that was like the third time I had to correct her. And I had to tell her in front of the other nurse, you're not reading this right. You're not reading the order right, for one thing. So I said, you're giving her bad, false information. And her comeback was, well, we're not used to patients knowing. And, I was dumbfounded. What do you mean you're not used to a patient knowing? There's all kinds of infusions going on. It's an infusion center. All the cancer people, all the cancer patients are in there, and whatever, other diseases that they get infusions for. The chemo people are in there. Once in a while, I catch what I call the chemo kids. And these are young kids in there getting chemo, And the nurses need to know. They need to know how much they're giving who. That's important. So if you ever find yourself in this position, I would seriously keep track of everything. It doesn't cost you anything to get copies of these orders. The test and stuff like that, they make that just readily available either on your phone or your PC through the patient portals. Like I said, I get my blood test results within 2 hours. I have gotten them before I made it home. It takes me half an hour to get home from the hospital down here, and I've gotten the results before I made it to the house. And most times it's about 2 hours, And so it gives you time, go through them, look at the bar graphs, see how you're fluctuating on whatever, and why is it going up? Why is it going down? Those are questions you can ask your primary care. What do I got to do different? But I would keep track of every move any of them make. I can't really stress that enough. Like, yesterday was prime example. It just kicked me out the door with 1/3 of my dose, and I was dumbfounded. And then her reply was even more dumbfounding, I pissed her off. I didn't care, It's like, really? Get it right. This is my life, not yours. And I'm entrusting you to take care of my life. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm paying you the big bucks down here. I think I said it's anywhere between $6,000 to $8,000 every Wednesday. It's what it costs when I go down. And that's just the hospital bill. But anyways, I'm going to jump off of here. And I'm already up past half an hour, it looks like. So I'll jump off of here. Maybe kick something out over the weekend. I'm not sure. The links will be in the description down there. If you're so inclined to help, that'd be wonderful. Most appreciative. And I understand, people can't. And nothing else. For sure talk to you either on Wednesday or Thursday next week after my hospital visit. Or maybe even on Monday or Tuesday, depending on, if my lab work's all bunk. I might blog a little bit about that. Till then, I'll talk to you guys, soon. Take care and keep on top of your health care. Really, keep track and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing because they don't always know. Can't stress that enough. Till then, peace, guys.